welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live. Yes, all the way live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. All right, welcome back to another episode of Turn Left, where we are talking to candidates all across the state. Guys, there's a huge opportunity to use that energy that I'm seeing out here in the universe to help candidates. And there's candidates running up and down the state. Do you know them all? I don't know them all, but I'm trying to get to know as many as I possibly can, and I'm trying to bring as many as I can to you. So tonight, this episode, we have another candidate running for state senate in District 26, Andrew Dale. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, good evening, Dana. It's a delight to be with you.
Oh, man, the joy is all mine. So tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty much a lifelong resident of Delaware County. I grew up in Muncie. I'm Ball State grad, Vincennes University grad. I've moved away a few times. I worked in local government earlier in my career in Muncie as community development director, and then in York, Pennsylvania as community and economic development director for the city there. But I've always come back to Muncie, my hometown. And I've been back for probably 25, 30 years now. And of course, I have a family and children, and my wife is a Presbyterian pastor. I'm an executive coach by trade, and formerly I was a project manager for construction management projects and interior design work for healthcare, corporate environments, children museums, hospitality industry, small colleges and such. Anyway, that's in a nutshell who I am. I also serve as the Delaware County Party Chair. I have that distinct pleasure of our 400 member plus membership, and now I'm a candidate for Indiana Senate.
Oh my gosh, you just loaded up a whole bunch of information I want to know so much more about. First of all, what keeps bringing you back to Muncie?
Well, it's always the people. I mean, Muncie is an extraordinary place because of the people's benevolence and the kindness of people. And this is where I grew up. I mean, people are typically drawn to where they grew up. And I had some really great experiences while I was growing up in Muncie. And so I've always tended to come back. I'm attracted, quite frankly, to the problems that need to be solved in Muncie and Delaware County as well. I mean, we have a fairly high rate of poverty, and there's a lot of work to be done. And so I'm involved in various efforts on that front. Historically, our senior community has been very important to me, helping people to age in place, meaning they can stay in their homes longer. It creates a better quality of life for people and their families. And then I've been involved in local governance quite a bit, in more transparent government, government that is more practicable, that meets people where they're at. And so Muncie has not only a long way to go in that front, but it has a lot of great strengths on those fronts too.
Yeah.
There's it's easy to try to attempt to make a large footprint in this world, but when we're tending to our own back and front yards, it's the meeting our neighbors where they need to be met is what really drives me, and that's where I think a lot of productivity is gained in communities and quality of life.
I love that. I love that reasoning because it just makes sense, right? Muncie's seen some ebbs and flow over, its existence, where it was a booming city with auto manufacturing and things of that nature, and then we saw those things leave. And it's scary because Muncie is one of those towns where there's enough people to really make a difference. And you worked in governance. How are you seeing how people are wanting to make a difference in Muncie?
Well, we have, through some of our hardships with poverty and such, you see an incredible amount of movement in the nonprofit organizations, healthcare organizations, those organizations and people that can wrap around opportunities and conundrums and help people. And so, Muncie has a large economy based on healthcare and serving the needs of people. And you mentioned Muncie's origination. I mean, Muncie boomed in the 1880s through the natural gas, the finding of natural gas in the area. So the Ball brothers came to town, and you're right about the glass manufacturing that was here for a very long period of time. The automotive industry moved in. The automotive industry moved back out
Man.
in the early '90s, late '90s, and so Muncie is continuing to find kind of its footing of where it needs to be, and we have a lot of good anchor points in Muncie. Our educational system is incredible with secondary, primary, secondary, post-secondary educational opportunities with Ivy Tech, Ball State University, and others. And so we have a lot to be thankful for. And that's part of why I'm running too, is because I aside from affordability and looking at issues of or opportunities of rural health and expansion of healthcare and supporting our agricultural industry and such, is what I call next generation opportunities. And I think Muncie, in its trying to find its way in the next 30, 40, 50 years, has a great opportunity to be a leader in the educational industry. We already have that through academics, but I'm talking about the actual industries of education. And as technologies evolve, being kind of a center point, an anchor place where not only the manufacturing of educational products can be made, but also the ideas and the types of teaching modems can be brought to the country as well.
I love that. So now you have to explain to us what an executive coach is.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different types of coaches, right? We have athletic coaches. We have people that support us in many ways. An executive coach, at least by my training, and the way that I go about my coaching is I work with mayors, police chiefs, fire chiefs, a lot of people in the financial industry, and nonprofit sectors as well. They're not always executives. Sometimes I'm introduced to a client by an organization that simply needs to either hone some skills or take them to the next level. So I sit with people generally on a monthly basis, usually for 12-month to 18-month stints, and we'll talk about opportunities and again those things that are stumbling them up and kind of help them think through those. Now, I ask people questions. I don't coach them in the sense that I tell them, walk 3 doors down, take a left, and you'll find your answer.
Right.
That's something that they need to do. I don't make it inordinarily difficult for them, but it's something that they need to find their footing on. And so I'm there to help them, nudge them in the right way. And I really enjoy it. It's helped me become a much better listener. And it's gratifying to be with people in the moment. I mean, that's really, most of us have a difficult time. And for a long time I did, of just sitting with someone and listening and not wanting to finish their sentences and cut in and again tell them what they should or shouldn't do or what I've done as far as what's created success or not, but helping them think through that. And so that's a very privileged space that I'm in. And I found that it's helped me in other areas of my life. It's helped me with my family. It's helped me with my wife and being a better husband and a better friend. And it helps me in all vocations of my life here in Muncie whether I'm a volunteer in an organization or such, speaking less, listening more. And when you do speak, you generally have a little more authority then.
Yeah, I'm still working on the cutting off people thing because because people say stuff on the show and I just got to get it in because it's like at that moment because sometimes those conversations just be flowing. It sounds like you enjoy understanding other people's point of view. Was this just a part of your training or was this something that the training just enhanced?
Good question. I'm naturally a highly inquisitive person. My wife hates traveling with me on a plane because I'll look over at the next person over and have a conversation for 6 or 7 hours on a plane. So I co-founded the Schaefer Leadership Academy about 19 years ago here in Muncie. And the Schaefer Leadership Academy is a nonprofit organization that helps people build their interpersonal leadership skills. Okay. And it also helps groups and such. And the organization has blossomed into just a dynamic and really a well-regarded nonprofit leadership academy. About a few years ago, they asked me to start doing some executive coaching for them. Before then, I'd been on the board, obviously as a co-founder But I was eventually sat at the kids' table on the board because I'd gone off my board term limits. But they asked me to come on and help them to move into a space of doing more executive coaching. So
I love that.
I think being inquisitive is really important. Helping people to arrive to realizations themselves is very important. And then helping people to make those imprints of those patterns of being consistent about doing the right things that get them in the best position to do the best for other people. Because if you're doing that, you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned before we started speaking or if you mentioned about the show being all about love when you started, but love's a very powerful thing. And I've learned that, and I've learned this from my wife, who's again a Presbyterian pastor, is that love is not a warm fuzzy thing. It's not this ethereal thing. It's love is sacrificial. It puts the needs of others before our own needs. And I think when you do that, you really get in the space with other people. You can be there and you can understand what their needs, expectations are, what their hopes are, and such. And I guess that's part of why I'm also running, is that I want to better understand people's needs and hopes and what their pain points are, and those things that can help them to run upfield, all of us together in a much better way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And thank you for highlighting that, because again, the work that we do in our communities, no matter how we show up, I think if you start in the right way, no matter what the outcome, as long as you have good intentions, it's going to be all right. Even if you don't accomplish the goal that you set, it's going to be good intention. If you start with good intentions, it's going to work out right. And it sounds like you spend a lot of time in government, whether as a coach, as an advisor, as an employee. What was it about government that drew you in?
It seems like people typically think in a few different buckets of areas. People are either drawn by ideas or issues, or maybe they're more institutional thinkers. I'm really drawn to ideas and institutional thinking. When I talk about institutional thinking, I've had the opportunity, good fortune to work in more complex organizations where you really have to get your ducks in a row to make something happen. Oftentimes there's 2 and 3 objectives happening at once that are going to lead up to one outcome. And that can be a very difficult and harried thing to do, but I'm really drawn to that. So my mind thinks more in institutional settings. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's a more organizational structure of things. Ideas and issues are kind of secondary, because I think it's important that you have a foundation, how you push those things through. To make them happen. So I think a lot of, in instances of the means of things and the ends of things. And so that's kind of how my mind works. And that's why I was drawn to government. I was naturally drawn to government because I got involved in my neighborhood association when I was 16 and became its president of our neighborhood association. At 16, but I tell you, I inherited a well-oiled machine in the west side of Muncie, Indiana, and had great examples. And so, at 16, I was doing that. And ever since then, I've been part and parcel with trying to do my part. Sometimes you succeed and sometimes you do a little better. But it's always an interesting ride when you're trying to do something for others, like you've said.
Andrew, I got to tell you, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but you're way overqualified for our state senate.
No.
Listen, let me ask you this. You just talked about how you are an institutionalist and you like fresh ideas. You're going to go into a state house where there are a lot of people who ignore the way things should be done. You mentioned that you were a project manager. I am also a project process oriented person, and it is frustrating to me when if you follow the steps, you're gonna get to what you want. Bro, you about to go into this state house because you're going to win. You're going to go into this state house and you're going to find that the processes that are supposed to be in place or that are written down to be done are not actually being executed that way. How are you going to manage that personally?
Yeah, that's a good point. And when things don't function the way they are, the way they're supposed to function, can be very tough. I was with another candidate several months back. It was a Democrat candidate, and I have a lot of respect for this candidate. And the question at the end of this questioning series was, "What's the first thing that you'll do when you're in the state house?" And in this case, this other individual would be in a different assembly, and one was they would impeach President Trump. Now that is an end. That is not a means with which to do something. And I applaud that fervor and that interest to do that, because quite frankly, I support that. But my response was that and this is going to get really in the weeds, Dana.
Take us there.
Okay, I've been meeting with superintendents of Delaware and Muncie and Delaware and Randolph County in my district, superintendents of school corporations and school boards. And there are a number of things, there are a number of thematic things. They're all very concerned about Senate Enroll Act number one and its ramifications. But I keep hearing about some unmanaged expenses. One is property and casualty insurance. Now, again, we're going to go way in the weeds here.
Come on, let's go.
But those costs have gone up and up and up over the years. Some school corporations have a risk pool that they're in with other school corporations, but there's not a universal program like this in Indiana. And I would suggest, because I'm not a big fan of draining the rainy day fund, but I would suggest that we seed a fund that can be a risk pool for all of our school corporations to bring those costs down. Now, that's good stuff, because we're talking the escalator on these costs over the last 5 years have like tripled. It's really damaging. So not enough money goes into the classroom. So it's one, vouchers are bad enough. Curbing the cost of insurance, escalating insurance costs, another. But the reason I brought that up the reason I gave this response was because when you reach across the aisle, you don't want to reach across with something that's going to burn somebody. You want to build up goodwill and better friendships.
Okay.
And I think legislation like that instills trust. And then the next year or the year after, the next cycle, you bring something up that's a little more expansive, something that might challenge somebody in their thinking. We might get to vouchers at some point or such, but I think it builds trust among both sides. And I think that's where it's lacking. And I happen to think that our side is more trustworthy, but I happen to know that there's other people on the other side, talking about the Republicans, that there are some amenable, good Republicans over there. And I think we need to find a way to work. Now, some will say that's Pollyannish, but if we're not getting in those spaces on a regular basis and attempting to, it might take once, twice, three times of reaching out through some type of palatable legislation, then I think, well, what are we doing this for? Now, a lot of legislation, there is a lot that's agreed upon at the State House, but there are really big chunks of things that are rancid, that are bad for Indiana. And I don't know how anybody can vote for those things, but unfortunately, the gentleman who is our existing senator, Scott Alexander, tends to always vote that way. So anyway, I just think coming in with things that you don't break a fever with cold water. You want to come in a little low, build the trust, and then expand your ideas, your ideals.
So, Andrew, I'm listening to you say your method there. That's what we call incrementalism, right? People, when you're talking to young folk, right? Because a lot of times our young folk want things now. They want it. They want it fixed right now. Let's make this change right now. You're speaking in incrementalism. How do you message that to young people so that they understand? Look, I feel what you're saying. I want what you want, but let's take the steps. I mean, that's the project manager in you too. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think you have to ask yourself, when's the last time you've had a hot burning coal in your gut and it worked for you? I mean, you have to bring the heat down, and you have to disenfranchise yourself of angst and move forward. That only comes from experience. I'm not saying there's not young people that have that experience. I think there are people at all ages. There are a lot of people that are older like me. I happen to be about 60. That are
you a Gen Xer with me, bro. We Gen Xers. I'm 56.
That's right. But I think that, I see it in all shapes and sizes. I don't see it in just younger people. I
Yeah.
will say that in panel discussions that I've been a part of, where stronger fervor has been displayed by some other candidates, I applaud that. But I think my message has worked well. We have a wide, varied Democrat and amenable Republican constituency in Delaware County. And so I think that actually my message has worked, not just worked, I think it's been met and appreciated favorably.
Well, I think you definitely have a wonderful speaking tone, and you're very, very measured in how you deliver. I'm too hyped. I'll never win an election because I just be screaming at people, and I don't be
That's
mean.
not true.
I'm just loud. I'm just loud. Speaking of your constituents, one of the ways I know to become an effective candidate is to literally listen to the people. What are your constituents telling you when you're out meeting with them?
Yeah. So if I could take one moment to back up real quick.
Sure.
I'm the Delaware County Democrat Party chair. I happened to run for mayor in 2019, which was an improbable task given some things that were happening in our county.
I remember.
Yeah, really tough. And the party has really not just gotten around all of that, but has moved through it in a very knowledgeable and I think that we have been honest about where we need to be.
Okay.
And I think we've turned that corner, which I'm very thankful for. But I always share with our candidates that when you knock on a door, you don't want to vomit on everybody and tell them everything you know. Hi, I'm Andrew Dale. I'm running for Senate. I'm in your neighborhood. These are a few things that are important to me, X, Y, and Z, and you do it that quick. But if you're open to it, I'm just curious to know what's on your mind. People want to talk. People need to talk. People have a lot of angst that they want to turn into action, and they want that action to turn into results. And so the only way to do that is, like you said, is to truly listen to people. And what I'm hearing from people, the average voter is smart, but they're not used to someone knocking on their door and saying, okay, tell me what's on your mind today, right now. They haven't chosen to put themselves in that chair to do that. But what I hear the most is things don't seem to be working right. My roads are worse than states around me. They do talk about affordability to a point.
Okay.
But
Elaborate.
What I'm hearing, people talk about, farmers are talking about gas prices, petroleum. They're still talking about the tariffs. And that is a conversation that I never go in and say, look, that guy is screwed up, meaning Trump. Right? If someone's got one big eye in the middle of their chest where they should have two eyes in their head, you don't tell them, why do you have an eye in the middle of your chest? Right? They know it. They know it doesn't make sense. It does not working for them. But you just simply have to ask, well, how's it going? Going into, pardon me, but a bitch fest is just not a productive thing to do. And I heard this from one of my first cousins who lives in Randolph County, is in farming, and I had been posting some things about Trump, and I'm not doing that now so much. He said, "I get it, I hear you, I'm voting for you. Would you just please stop?" He didn't want to hear it. What he wanted to hear was more solutions about things. So I've switched over because the average voter in Delaware County, regardless of their politics, is fairly moderate, fairly middle ground, and is a little more nuanced. And so I have to attune to that. We don't have the luxury of living on the East or West Coast where we can be far more provocative. When I push forward pretty hard, I get a lot of resistance, and that's not going to open ears to my message. And it's not going to help them speak and articulate what's truly on their mind if I do that. So I get criticism for this a little bit, because people want to push pretty hard, and I get folks that will just call it a more progressive line of thinking. I'm as progressive as it gets, to be honest with you. But I just know that in Delaware County, East Central Indiana, you can't get there if you splash them with cold water.
Yeah. No doubt, no doubt. And I think what's more important is that you want to try to bring people in, right? And
Yeah,
and honestly, you're not going to endear yourself to anybody if you keep calling them an idiot. Like
that's true.
you just can't keep doing it. And I understand the frustration on our side of like, we tried to tell you. Now,
Hmm.
I'm not a candidate, so I reserve the right to tell people we try to tell you, but I'm not a candidate, right? But
Right.
but you can't like I tell a lot of I've talked to a lot of black candidates, and yes, there's racism, but you can't call people racist and then expect them to listen. They may be
True.
exhibiting racist behavior, absolutely, but as soon as you do it, and then once you understand human behavior, you have to adjust it if you're trying to bring them in. We know that these bad behaviors exist. We just have to figure out how to be able to articulate our message without actually, and I'm not saying don't message so that you are not offending people, because you're going to offend some people all the time anyway, right?
Hmm. Right.
The goal is to try to bring as many people in. I love the way that you think on that.
Yeah, and Dana, I don't want to dispel well, I don't want to communicate that I don't think throwing a punch isn't a good thing.
Every now and then.
You can't continue to throw punches all the time, like you've said. So you have
Strategic.
to have a choice when you do that, and most effective. I'm sure I'll do that in this campaign, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that I will say some things that'll be quite provocative,
Mhm.
and I will. But I just chose not to do it all the time because after a while, you just don't listen to the individual anymore.
Exactly. I love that. It's an understanding of, again, human behavior. You literally
Hmm.
told us earlier you learned how to listen. And I love that your cousin gave you advice because you know his situation, you know what's like for them in Randolph County, and you took it.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as you're thinking about, the affordability conversation, you've alluded to a lot of issues that we're facing right now. You mentioned, public schools and vouchers. You mentioned insurances and making
Mhm.
sure that the local governments have what they need, and SB1. How, like, you have touched on a lot of things without elaborating on, it, and that's really good because it sounds to me like you are very well versed on a lot of different things. But if you had to pick maybe two or three things that you think your constituents, your future constituents would want you to work on, what are those?
Public education is number one.
Okay.
There is no doubt about it. People have an innate understanding that this is a two-generation turn to get things rectified, and
Okay.
they do understand that public education is been weakened, and that there is a run on public education, and it's not to it, I don't see that the run at public education is that they're looking to destroy it, but they're looking to replace it in many
Mm-hmm.
ways. And those ways are, are one-sided about our religion, about our faith, about Christian faith. I'm a Christian. I'm a Presbyterian, and I am moved, and I am very much directed by my faith in my politics.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that my particular faith should drive the public discussion entirely. I think there's room at the table for everybody. In fact, our faith really has no play in how our schools are run
Mm-hmm.
or how we live our lives as individuals. So
Yeah.
it's the basis of our country, right?
Yeah.
So public education is number one. We could go on and on and on about public education, but from vouchers to how the degrees are being formed now, how you need to be on a track very early on in order to graduate with a certain type of degree. And if you don't get on that track by the time you're a freshman, you're screwed. That's some serious stuff. But I do think that Senate Enroll Act number one is the front and center issue that needs to be changed. At the least, major patches to it. At the most, repealed and please go back to the way it was, but then made better at
Yeah.
that point. Because there is a better property tax, a better taxing structure. But your question was, how are people articulating maybe what I'm seeing as what I'm hearing, what's important? And again, as I go to these school board meetings, as I go to speak to superintendents, as I speak to people in their communities, in Delaware and Randolph County, we have a lot of rural school corporations, and those school corporations serve as the heart of their community. I mean, they are physically the space where people go about every other weekend when school's not in session. If their kids aren't in sports anymore and their kids are out of the house, they're still going to the auditoriums, they're still going to the gymnasiums, they're still going to the bazaars and all that. It is the center of those communities, and they're starting to see that become tattered. And once you take that out of rural communities, you have a real problem. And then when you have that on top of that, with rural healthcare being strained, it's a serious concern.
I think about how a lot of these bills that are incredibly harmful to municipalities, all town governments, right? The areas of Indiana that are actually hit the hardest are the areas that are voting for the candidates that are writing these policies. Have you been able to draw the line? I'm not talking about hate on the human, but to talk about this person wrote this policy that caused this pain that you're feeling right now. Are you able to draw that line?
It's really interesting you say that. I'm hoping that I'm hearing you right, and then I give you some response that addresses your question. There was a study, and it's going to come out in a book form in the fall, that equates how the Republican policymakers, especially on rural issues, agricultural, education, and such, that they have pinned the immigrant as the most detrimental influence in rural communities. And that, heaven forbid, you as a farmer, who many farmers receive SNAP benefits, receive certain assurances from the federal government by way of an biannual check, right? For their harvests and such, and under harvest, over harvest, whatever. That if you go against us, you're basically with the immigrant, and that was sewn into the fabric decades ago, probably a couple of decades ago. So farmers continually vote against their interest. I think they do in Delaware and Randolph and in Indiana, because from a psychological standpoint, they don't want to be seen as with the immigrant. Some of them don't want to be seen with those of different color. That isn't all of them, by the way.
Sure.
That isn't all of them. And this is all fear-based, right? This is something that they probably, many of us probably can't articulate ourselves, but it is very much a fear-based tactic on the part of I wouldn't even call it the conservative, but the more tyrannical version of what we're seeing in MAGA.
That's actually really interesting. I can't wait for that book to come out, because when you consider, especially in Indiana, we have a lot of migrant labor on our farms. So we do. I'm still I guess it's just mind boggling to me. I am not voting for someone who wants to gut the Voting Rights Act, because I know that's going to be harmful to my community. I don't know. Wow. Yeah. You're bringing up some really, really important points, and I feel like, and talking to you, this, can I just say, this is like the fastest half hour I have ever had in doing a show. Like, I'm looking down and I'm like, it's a half hour already.
Listen, my gosh, you're right.
It means this was a really interesting conversation, and I hope that people take away something from this. Now, you are also the party chair. Right?
Yes.
Ooh, there's a lot of work that goes with that.
Well, there's a lot of expectations that come with it, especially a party that's rebuilding to a large degree. We took when my leadership team and I came on board back in March of 25, we took our membership through a strategic planning process. I am very proud of something that we have done. 70% of our 156 precinct committee structure, so 156 precinct committee folks, half of them precinct chairs, the other half vice precinct chairs. 70% of them, before we came on, were appointed. Now 70% are elected.
Love that.
Now Some say I'm crazy to do that because, right, the power in the chair is this board of directors we have. The power of the chair to continue is to have the thumb on the precinct committee structure. My feeling is if somebody wants the keys to this car and they can do it better, I will gladly hang it
Baby,
over. Right?
No way.
If somebody can do it better than me, I honestly will step aside and gladly hand them the keys. If they cannot, you're going to have to kill me to take the keys away.
I feel that. I feel
right.
that.
Because we have such a good team and we have such good precinct committee folks. And then beyond that, we've got a volunteer base that is exceptional. So this is the second thing that we did. When we came on board, we knew that we came in an off year, every 4 years it's an off year when party leadership is elected. But the next year is the first county election of the next 4-year cycle. We have no one in county government right now. We have very few. We have a trustee, and we have a few here and there. But we have little candidate office holders. We're going to have some success this year with our candidates. I'm assured of that. We have some wonderful, wonderful candidates. But over the last 15 months, what we've gone about doing is building the volunteer base first, because you can be a very good candidate and lose because you don't have a good volunteer structure.
Yes, sir.
But you can be a less informed candidate, one that needs some sharpening. You could even be a little lackluster, quite frankly, with a great volunteer base and get elected. Yeah. So our goal is to have unicorns, right? We want people that are good candidates and good office holders, but you can't get there without world-class volunteers. So we have put an exceptional amount of time, effort, and treasure to training our PCs and letting them take the driver's seat. So everybody has a place at the table, right? I don't care if you're sweeping a floor or if you're running this place. All of those things have equal value because when you do something well, it adds so much value.
Mm-hmm. So I see the smile on your face when you even talk about it, right?
Oh yeah, but I get criticism for it. I'll be honest with you. Occasionally, I get criticism.
But listen,
for it.
My philosophy is if everybody liked everything you did and said, something wrong with you. Because you're gonna everybody. It's okay that you get criticism because more than likely, Andrew, it's the do nothing somebody that is criticizing the do something somebody. Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, I get criticism all of the time. I do not care. I'm out here, like you said earlier, we give of our time. We give of our sweat equity. Nobody is paying me to talk to candidates, 2 and 3 times a week. Nobody is paying me to edit videos up and say, hey, how can we get this information out? It just so happens that talking is what I do best. So how can I best help candidates? I also have an IT degree. So I learned how to use the technology to offer, what I can to candidates. Somebody's going to always criticize. Who cares? You just keep your head down and you keep working. And what I'm seeing is that you are an amazing leader because not only have you were able to visually and understand what you needed to rebuild the party structure, you were able to see who the best people would be to help you build that party structure. So I'm sorry, that was a rant.
No, thank you. No, and it's it is far less than more.
Yeah.
But what you have to do, and I'm coaching people on this all the time. Mm-hmm. It's important to listen to people because oftentimes people are right. So you have to sit with that and you have to decide what to do with that. Oftentimes, or sometimes they're not right. Mm-hmm. And you got to learn to let it go. Very difficult to do, right? Especially when you're volunteering. Very difficult to do. But, anyway.
And the thing about what you said about, having 70% of your PCs being elected, I think that's fantastic because the folks that are thinking that you need to have the thumb on the scale on the PCs are thinking about perceived power because honestly, we don't have any statewide seats. We have a super minority in both chambers, right? Most of our county officials in most of the counties outside of Lake and Marion and Monroe are all Republican. So what power are you talking about?
Right, right. You've got up a really good point, by the way. And I don't know if we've got a little
We
more
got
time.
time. This is my show.
Okay.
We got time.
Okay. Um, I often say we're going to send some lambs to slaughter before we're successful.
Yeah.
It is not to say that those who run this year and don't make it won't the next time or the time after.
Sure.
And it's not to say we're always one step close. If our hearts are right and our minds are focused, we're always one step closer to delivering something special. And so we have to see value in just doing the work. And sometimes doing the work doesn't get you all the way there, but eventually it will get you there.
Yeah. And if you're doing it, if you are doing the work not for pats on the back, but for the uplifting of other people, I'm telling you, it's gonna work. If you're in this political business of uplifting other people, it's going to work. I never thought, and again, this interview ain't about me, but I never thought, I never knew that I had the ability to move people with words until I ran for office. I've been a public speaker my whole life, right? And then here I was, 45 years old. At that point, I had been public speaking for 40 years. Literally, my grandmother had me doing it at 5. I did not know I had the ability to move people. And what I found was when you can inspire people to move, you've done more for your community, right? And then I followed it up with work, right? I didn't just sit around talking to Mike, right? You know, I put the sweat equity in the labor. And you and I sound like we are cut from basically the same cloth of service, right? We have dissimilar backgrounds, but we have very similar visions on how we uplift people. I'm excited for you as the chair and as the candidate. Andrew Dale, House Senate District 26. Tell the people where they can find you.
Well, you can go. I'm going to make sure I get this right at daleforindianasenate.com. You can find out everything about me. You can donate. You can become a part of the team.
I love it.
And I do want to say, Dane, I want to say one thing.
Sure.
The first time that I met you was at a training down south of Indianapolis, and you walked up and you hadn't even said anything yet, and you absolutely had my attention.
Wow.
It was the nonverbal, and then it was like the sun came up when you started talking.
Oh my God.
You are powerful, and I really appreciate everything that you do for our party and for Indiana. And you're making a huge difference.
Oh my God. Thank you. Coming from you, the executive coach, I'm taking it, right? I'm taking it and I'm harnessing it and I'm putting it in my heart. And I really do appreciate that you see the work and appreciate the work. That's all I care about, right? And I'm making a difference. And that's thank you. Thank you. Y'all. Okay. Now, he told us where we can find him, right? But what he didn't do, and I'm going to do it for him, is he didn't ask you to click his donate link and donate to his campaign. Listen, he's a county party chair. He recognizes the resources that candidates need to be successful, right? So become a $10, $15, $20 recurring donor for his campaign. But if you can drop $250, drop the $250. He will, because here's the thing, voter contact is important. And you see, this man is a listener. This man is a listener. And when he goes to the State House, he's going to be able to take all the noise in, filter it out, and then really offer sound solutions that'll be impactful for Hoosiers. I mean, that's what I got from this interview. If we send Andrew Dale to our state Senate, he's going to be right there with Fatty Cadora, right there with Shelley Yoder, being able to have sound conversations about how to move Indiana forward. He's already been doing that anyway at the municipal level in local government. He knows what he's talking about. He has the experience. So click on his donate link, sign up to be a volunteer. He has apparently this amazing volunteer organization thing going on. Sign up to be a volunteer and help this candidate get into the state Senate so that we can improve the lives of Hoosiers. Are you motivated? I'm motivated. I'm on cloud 9 right now. All right, Indiana's own Dana Black, turn left. I will holler at you next time. Peace. Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions, executive producer, Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by Dorianin 22 from Pixabay.